Dear ladies and gentlemen, heartily welcome from the Austrian Institute for European and Security Policy. It's my great pleasure to welcome you at our today's AIES talk. And I can promise you we have a list of very prominent guests. And it's a great pleasure for me to welcome, on the one hand, the Kosovo ambassador in Austria, Ambassador Pllana. Heartily welcome to you. It's a great pleasure for me to welcome Ambassador Johannes Eigner from the Austrian Foreign Ministry. Ambassador, good afternoon. And of course, it's also a great pleasure for me to welcome Lukas Mandl, member of the European Parliament. Heartily welcome. May I shortly present our today's speakers. On the one hand, Lulzim Pllana was born in 1978 in Kosovo, in Pristina, as far as I know. He studied in Germany, German language, and then went back to Kosovo and had sort of an academic career working for the University of Pristina in different functions. Afterwards, he joined the Foreign Ministry. He became a diplomatic advisor for the Foreign Minister, Dr. Enver Hoxha, and then afterwards also a so-called normal career as a deputy political director, then as a member as the first deputy in the embassy in Berlin, and since February 2020 as Kosovo ambassador in Austria. The ambassador will say a few introductory words, and I would ask him, just to start and to say a few words to all of us.
Thank you, Dr. Fasslabend. But first, let me thank you for making this event possible, especially on this special day, on the 14th anniversary of Kosovo, and also for your contribution as the former defense minister, as an MP at the Austrian Parliament and supporting Kosovo. And I'm really honored today that together with the friends of Kosovo and my friends, Johannes and Lukas, to thank them and to have this common meeting here, this online, and to speak about Kosovo, but also to thank them for their contribution in strengthening the relations of Austria with Kosovo and supporting our way towards the European Union. Of course, the introductory word to Kosovo, we have to say a lot, but first let me just concentrate on some of the main topics that Kosovo has achieved during last years, especially then since the Declaration of Independence 2008. Kosovo made tremendous achievements on all fields of daily life, and especially internationally too. The progress made during this year were also acknowledged by the international community and our friends and supporters. But of course, Kosovo remains one of the key partners then in the region, especially as a supporter of peace and stability, but also on the other hand, also as a contributor, especially on the keeping good neighborly relations with all countries of the region. The main achievements of Kosovo, I will say, that is democracy and ensuring the rights for all communities within the country. And this is also by the recent international reports, this kind of progress was somehow acknowledged. But also this shows that the Kosovo stands really ready for its obligations internationally as a partner. Kosovo has achieved a lot. Of course, bilaterally, we have also very good relations with Austria. I will concentrate also that we have done a lot on our path towards the European Union. Kosovo stands for European values and the Western values, and I think that our main goal is Euro-Atlantic integration, and this will also shape our way towards our European integration. And in this regard, of course, I want to thank our friends, and here especially the representative by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Austria and Lukas on the European side. This is really a true voice of Kosovo and supporter within the European Parliament in Brussels and in Strasbourg. Regarding the challenges that we have, of course, that Kosovo were challenged and had different phases of transition that we have during the past decade. It was not an easy way to move forward, but we have a kind of different transition, of course, election, but concentrating on the recent developments, I think that Kosovo achieved a lot. It was somehow that since last year we're having a new government, and I think that the concentration are on reforms and for economic developments. But of course, the most important, I think that it was all for us, it was the fighting of pandemic, and in this case also Austrian played a crucial role, also supporting Kosovo towards this goal. Kosovo looks, it's of course, as I stated, this is then the way towards the EU, but on the other side, I think that Kosovo recognizes the achievement and wants to be part of the European Union. But on the other side, I think that we contributed a lot towards on this path for reconciliation between countries in the region. I think that during the last decade, we had a dialogue which moved since 2011 on different levels since 2011, and Kosovo showed its commitments on that as a crucial partner moving ahead, but on the other side also trying to find a way on reconciliation, especially this is then the dialogue with Serbia and how Kosovo were all the time committed. And I think that I can say that Kosovo remains committed to the dialogue and wants to achieve the goal, which is then mutual recognition. And on this way, I think that through your support and international support, I will say also of our allies, especially European Union, but also of the United States, I think that we made progress, and which is a tremendous work which has been in the past. And I think this is then how we would concentrate also in the future. Economically, of course, I think that maybe I will not, maybe we can deepen later on these topics, but economically we're doing good. Of course, pandemic was one of the most challenges that we had, but now due to the really measures that we took, also through the support that we had from our partners, I think that we managed as well, and we are looking forward also then to move. I think that I will gonna stop here. Maybe the others and on different topics, maybe I will intervene. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Ambassador. It's a pleasure to have you here. Thank you for your introduction. And may I introduce very shortly our next two speakers. There's on the one hand, Ambassador Dr. Johannes Eigner. He was born in 1960 in Carinthia. He started in Graz and in Strasbourg. And then he started his diplomatic career. He came to Cairo, to Moscow. He worked for OSCE, joined the mission in Bratislava, and experienced very much Eastern and Southeastern Europe, but also the question of integration with European Union. In 2012, he became the Austrian ambassador to the Republic of Serbia, and in 2017, he became Austria's ambassador to Moscow. So you can see that he certainly has an outstanding diplomatic career. And at the moment, he is not only the Deputy Director General for European Affairs and Economy, but also the Special Envoy for the Western Balkans. I really heartily want to welcome you, Mr. Ambassador Eigner. And also a few words to Lukas Mandl. Lukas Mandl was born in 1979 in Vienna. He started his career after his studies in Vienna as an assistant of the famous member of Parliament. I missed the name.
Gerhard Bruckmann.
Gerhard Bruckmann, yeah. And then he became himself, already with 29 years, a member of the Lower Austrian Parliament. He chaired the European Commission over there. And a few years ago, he became a member of the European Parliament and also had an outstanding career over there, where he is a member of the Foreign Committee and the vice chair also of the subcommittee for security and defense, and in various other special functions. He also published the book Kosovo and the EU, State of the Play, and insofar, I guess he has quite some competence. Before I ask the first question, maybe just for our audience, a few words about Kosovo. I myself had, for the first time, I got deeper insight when the later President Rugova, for the first time, visited Vienna at the beginning of the 90s and informed us about the situation in ex-Yugoslavia and especially in Kosovo. Of course, then I had the opportunity as a defense minister to be involved, when the situation became more and more tense. I tried to warn also the international community for the outbreak, the possible outbreak of a war, but I could not prevent it. It happened. Okay, maybe just a few words to the nowadays situation, not the political situation, but only to give a flash of the size of the country. Kosovo is not a very big country. It has only a little bit more than 10,000 square kilometers. The size of its population is around about almost 2 million. This is around about the same as Slovenia or Northern Macedonia. It is only half of Croatia and a little bit more than a quarter of Serbia. So you have, and 2/3 of Albania. So you can maybe compare it a little bit with its neighboring countries. But the size is not the distinctive question and the most important question. The most important question certainly is the inner development and the acceptance and recognition by its neighborhood, recognition within the Western Balkans. And insofar, this is a very difficult situation. And therefore, I also want to ask my first question to Ambassador Eigner. I mean, now we are a little bit more than 2 decades after the war and half a decade after independence. Where does Kosovo stand today? How do you see the development, the achievements, the challenges?
Thank you. And first, thank you very much for the invitation to this talk, and my sincere congratulations on the occasion of the National Day to Ambassador Lulzim, to yourself, and to the Kosovo people. it came a bit too early, not the declaration of independence, but this year, a bit later, we could have celebrated in real time and not online a month or so later. So, but we'll have other opportunities, I'm sure. Austria was from the beginning a staunch supporter of Kosovo independence and one of the among the 20 first countries who recognized Kosovo back in 2008. Actually, I checked. I think the very first one, the very day on 17th of February, was strangely enough Costa Rica. It came to my mind that I think Costa Rica was also the first country who recognized at the time back the independence of Baltic countries. So they have a reliable partner far away for that kind of recognition. But now to the question, where do we stand? If we look back, how difficult the first years and the first steps into the newly acquired statehood was, then I think quite a way was done and completed, starting perhaps what I think was really crucial, the EU Commission's communication in 2005, European Future for Kosovo. I think that this set the scene and the pace on which we all worked then together with Kosovo. And also, I have to say, those countries within the European Union who did not recognize Kosovo. It was possible to sign after the important Brussels Agreement in 2013, the SIA, and only 2 years later, in 2016, it entered into force. Actually, in 2013, you said I served at the time as an ambassador in Serbia, and I remember we had a opening of a plant run by an Austrian enterprise. And Dacic was there at the time, Prime Minister. He just the other day came back from Brussels, where he met Thaci. And the first question journalists put to him was, "Did you shake hands with Thaci?" At the time, this was almost unimaginable that the Serbian Prime Minister and the Kosovo Prime Minister would shake hands. No question about the results, but did you shake hands? Yes, they did. Some very discreetly. But that where it started, and the problem is even despite these achievements, that we still are in a situation, and you, Dr. Fasslabend, hinted to it, of a sort of uncompleted statehood, not internally uncompleted. There's a fully functioning state, contrary perhaps that one can claim in Bosnia for that matter, but it's externally uncompleted statehood with this situation of non-recognition. I think 60% of all states over the world have recognized Kosovo, or a bit more, and there's the question of participation in international organizations. This has to be overcome, and I think the only way to overcome is to make progress in the dialogue, to go to what was formulated by the European Union in the negotiating framework for Serbia, but also in documents for Kosovo, the comprehensive normalization in form of a mutually binding agreement. I think for good reasons, the word recognition is not explicitly mentioned, but even to that comprehensive normalization, as we see it now, is still some way to go, and I sincerely hope, and we support both countries in making more progress, as we see right now, towards this final goal. So far for a short first impression and assessment from my side.
Yeah, thank you very much. And now maybe Lukas Mandl, what is the state of play, as you called it in your book, as you see it at the moment?
Thank you, Werner Fasslabend. And first of all, I want to congratulate all the citizens of the Republic of Kosovo to their national holiday today. It's Independence Day, February 17th. That's also why I want to especially thank the Austrian Institute for Europe and Security and Werner Fasslabend and his team for organizing today's event. It's still pandemic conditions, but we have the opportunity to meet online on the occasion of this very special day. It's a joyful day. Beside everything we have to solve, it's a joyful day. It's the youngest state of Europe, Republic of Kosovo, 14 years, and it's also the state with the youngest average age of people. So we have a lot of opportunities there. Opportunities not only for Kosovo itself, but for Europe entirely. And this is why it makes so much sense, in my view, to engage a lot with this youngest state of Europe, with, I would say, one of the 6 Western Balkan countries which are crucial for the future of today you can find, among many other published releases and articles, one of Adelheid Wölfel, a very experienced journalist when it comes to the Balkans, to the Western Balkans, to the European dimension in the Austrian daily Der Standard. And this says a lot in German language, in that case, on the recent state of play. Johannes Eigner has already shared a lot, what I can only underline and emphasize. Very important to have that view. The Western Balkans are not only focus of the Austrian foreign policy and have remained focus of the Austrian foreign policy over decades, also multi-partisan. It's a multi-partisan approach to engage with the Western Balkans, but it's not only in the Austrian interest, it's in the interest of all Europe to, I would say, take care of all the European territory, especially when it comes to its heart, and in some respect, geographically, the Western Balkans are the heart of the European territory. And Kosovo plays a crucial role because it's the only state of the Western Balkans which is not yet recognized by 5 of our member states. That's a shame. I want to share that with you as a parliamentarian on European level. It's a shame for Europe that there are still 5 countries which have not yet recognized Kosovo. And it was a joyful day also when Israel has recognized Kosovo. What a clear signal of unity of the political West, of freedom, of rule of law, of democracies. But still not in any of the 5 cases of member states who have not yet recognized Kosovo. The reasons are really related to Kosovo itself. Not in any of these 5 cases. So maybe we have to share a lot of information about Kosovo and its situation. And since the question of Werner Fasslabend also was the recent state of play, in my view, the country in itself is pretty stable, more stable than other Western Balkan countries, more democratic than other Western Balkan countries. But the largest obstacle is still what has to be solved in the Kosovo-Serbia dialogue. And that's something I encourage also Kosovo officials to engage in. I understand, due to historic reasons, the sentiment that it's doubtable what else can be discussed. But for the future generations, the dialogue and to have results of the dialogue is essential. And that's why we have to remain on the table. Everybody has to remain on the table in order to achieve results in this dialogue. Serbia, Kosovo, and also the European Union, which has a special envoy, as Johannes Eigner is the one for the Western Balkans of Austria. The European Union special envoy for the Kosovo-Serbia dialogue is Miroslav Lajčák. And since as a parliamentarian, it's my obligation to be critical on such officials and representatives like Lajčák, and I was also critical with regard to his operation and his content in the past. But in the last few weeks, I have the impression that for the second half of the current mandate on the European level, maybe Miroslav Lajčák is now achieving something. And that's what I wish for for all Europe, for the Western Balkans, for Kosovo, and for Serbia, because one must not forget all that we are doing diplomatically, parliamentarily, on whatever level. We are all doing that for the citizens, for the regular people, for the population of this generation and the next. And there are people in Serbia which should not be blocked of becoming European Union citizens. And there are people in Kosovo which should not be blocked in becoming European Union citizens. So we act on behalf of all these people, no matter what ethnicity, nationality, religion, political ideology, or whatever. And that's why the dialogue is so important. And what I also state in today's standard article of Adelheid Wölfel is what I have stated a lot, but I'm happy that it's published today. Kosovo has to become a question of the Commission's President herself. It's not only up to Borrell, it's not only up to Lajčák, it's not only up to Commissioner Vaheli, it must be up to the Commission's President herself because of the clear priority. It's about unity of Europe, and it's about influence from other parts of the world. It's about Chinese influence, Turkish influence, Russian influence in the region, which try to influence not only the Western Balkans, but all Europe by influencing the Western Balkans. And I'm happy that due to the Balkan Barometer and other polls and studies each and every year, and even more often, we experience that the people in the Western Balkans, especially in Kosovo again, with the highest number, are strongly Europe-oriented, strongly, more than most populations in today's EU member states. So when China, Russia, Turkey, the leaderships in these powers try to influence the Western Balkans, they have not yet achieved a lot in terms of mindset. But people lose patience, and I understand that. I, as a parliamentarian myself, lose patience, especially when it comes to minor issues which could easily be solved, like visa liberalization. It's clear. Even the huge Ukraine has visa-free travel. All the 5 other Western Balkan countries have visa-free travel. I have shared with our new Minister for the Interior in Austria my view on things, and of course Austria, as Johannes Eigner has already mentioned, always was on the side of future and understanding and cooperation and mutual understanding in the Western Balkans, and this is also the field where Austria is pushing forward for visa liberalization. But again, we have some blocking member states, not especially, not only the ones who are not recognizing Kosovo, but also the others. So to put it in a nutshell, not to be too long, we have a bigger political picture with influence from other parts of the world. We have the clear political picture that the European Union must learn to engage in all European territory, and the Western Balkans are the important example for that. We have to approach the Commission's President herself in order to get more engaged here. We have a pretty stable political landscape in Kosovo. I had the privilege to serve as EU Election Observation Mission Chief Observer, appointed by Josep Borrell in fall last year. 2 weeks ago, I was there for the so-called return visit to hand over the result to the President and others. And I was happy to see, and I'm stating that not as a EU Election Observation observer, because I'm not supposed to. I stated as a parliamentarian that now the political landscape is even more diverse as before the local elections, because we have other political parties in power in most of the municipalities now than on the national level, and all these parties have their backgrounds, and they are obviously working pretty cooperatively with each other, good mutual work. And diversity is clear. The only really democratically concerning point is the lack of competition in the Serb majority municipalities, which is also stated by the official EU election observation report. And this is an euphemistic language, of course. That's what I state as a parliamentarian again. We have trouble there, but generally, political landscape is stable. We have to fight for rule of law in Kosovo. The government is obviously doing that. Let's support them. We have to fight corruption. Government is obviously doing that. We have to support that. But maybe last point, let's not only talk about problems, especially on this national holiday today. Let's also talk about future opportunities. And these are especially in the field of digitalization, in my view, because of the young average age of people there. Because there are so many young people, there's no traditional industry, nearly no traditional industry left. There's agriculture, farming, there's nearly no traditional industry, but there are young people who want to engage in a digital sphere, who want to be active in software engineering, software architecture, coding, artificial intelligence even. And there are already large international companies who engage those young people in Kosovo. And this could be a future opportunity for Kosovo to become some kind of Silicon Valley of Europe, so to speak. That's what I mean with visionary thinking. We have to solve all the traditional, or not only traditional, but historic problems. We have to solve them, but we have to also work on the future and to engage, especially in the field of digitalization, seems to be positive. Johannes Eigner knows more about that, I'm sure, but in April, there will be a large event for 10 different sectors of business between Austria and Kosovo. In Pristina, with government officials from both sides, with chambers from both sides, and especially with companies from both sides, in order to work positively together in the future. And these are the fields where we have to seek opportunities, and this will be the best not only for Kosovo but for Europe in its entirety.
Yeah, thank you for your very comprehensive statement at the beginning. And I go directly to Ambassador Eigner. Ambassador, where do you see achievements? Where do you see challenges? Maybe not only concerning Kosovo, but the whole region. I mean, when I talked about the number of inhabitants in different countries, then it is also an indication that the size of the countries is not too big, but together they would be a market of more than 20 million people. Insofar, where do you see the challenges? Where do you see the achievements?
Well, first, I would like to say that I can subscribe to many things Lukas Mandl has said, also about the potential of the country. The achievements, or let's start with the challenges, because they are not only symptomatic for Kosovo, but as you said, for the Western Balkans at large, is still a lack of reconciliation. It is more broader, and that one can feel and hear, unfortunately, very often, is a lack of sense for compromise. Compromise often is seen as weakness. Either you have it all or you have nothing. This is an approach which can't work. It is still weak government and administrative institutions, a weak economy. I think Kosovo has a problem with unemployment. It's the highest unemployment rate in the region, despite the very commendable initiative of Prime Minister Kurti. I think his slogan is "Jobs and Justice." Both is, I think, is really needed. And from that, one of the most serious problems, again, not only of Kosovo but of the entire region, is the brain drain. People are leaving. They are leaving. In particular, the young and better educated. Whenever one comes to a place, to a city, and ask the students or representatives of the younger generation, what would you like to do? They said, go to Austria, go to Germany, to France, or others perhaps to the States or to Canada. So this is really a challenge for all countries, for the region as such. to provide opportunities and conditions which are attractive enough for younger and better educated people not to leave. The achievements, if one looks back now, it's now almost 20 years since the famous Thessaloniki summit and the Thessaloniki agenda. One can say little has been done in these 20 years, but at least one country, Croatia, became full-fledged members. Two others started accession negotiations. Two other countries, we hope, Northern Macedonia and Albania, can start not before long, and those problems can be overcome. There's comprehensive programs for financial support, not only the IPA program, but the Western Balkan Investment Fund, in investment and economic program. So there is a clear focus of the European Union towards that region, even if not always, and many say by far not sufficient, concentrated on achieving the final goal, which is full-fledged membership of all 6 countries. Something, and Lukas Mandl pointed to it, the Austrian governments in whatever composition and coalition supported consistently and also in very practical terms. Perhaps because it was mentioned, and one can hear it quite often in the discussion, the European Union does not enough for this region, and it leaves a vacuum which others will fill or are already about to fill. China, Russia, Turkey are mentioned mostly. If one looks at the actual economic interconnections, it becomes clear where the real interests are. The whole region, foreign trade of the region, of all 6, and it doesn't vary much in one country from one country to the other, is around 70% with the European Union. It's about 8% with China, and even less, around 5% with Russia. I think only, and there are other numbers for investments and or what have you can be mentioned. I think this makes already clear where this region also economically already belongs and belongs already for a long time. And there is no way in changing this proportion significantly to the benefit of any other country. I think it's simply impossible. And it's true, 20 million, but the overall economic weight, of course, is not very big. I think it's the aggregated GDP of all 6 is around that of Slovakia. So it's a medium economy if one takes all six countries together. Perhaps one remark, since Lukas Mandl mentioned Miroslav Lajčák and his activities in our assessment. He tries his best in bringing both sides, I should say, again together, and making next steps in order not to have this crucially important dialogue in that end. In particular, now when traveling to the region together with the U.S. Special Representative Gabo Escobar, I think this is also a very important signal that the United States and European Union here have one common goal and one common effort, which we really hope bears fruit. Also in such difficult points and issues as the Association of Serb Municipalities. I know this is a difficult question and sort of also sore point, but which has to be tackled and overcome in one way or the others. And in general, I think one can say that the European Union is again more focused on the region. Some might might argue that's because it's the threat of instability has become bigger, so it does it more out of concern than out of negative concern than of positive concern. But fact is that all countries who until recently perhaps didn't have such an interest for the region, like let's say France or the Netherlands, are again much more engaged, and I see this as a good sign that one can say really all countries of the members of the European Union now show a new and renewed interest to help this region coming close to the European Union.
Yeah, thank you. I guess the picture you gave shows very clearly, you know, that there are quite some challenges. We did not speak about the way of fighting corruption and so on, which is not a question for one single country, but of course for not only the whole region, but it goes far beyond. And of course, the question of stability between the different countries probably will stay. So far, maybe let's look a little bit at the inner stability. We have already tried to initiate a discussion. What really was an experience for me personally, you know, was the last parliamentary elections. Because when you follow Kosovo's history, then of course UČK and the parties that derived, on the one hand from the Rugova side and from the other side linked to UČK, dominated more or less the picture for quite some years. And suddenly in the last year, there was such a difference. Nowadays, Prime Minister Kurti won the elections with more than 50%. So far, what is the outcome? It's almost exactly 1 year thereafter. We can have first impressions, and maybe, Mr. Ambassador, if you try to go into this question as the first one, and how do you see the stability, and how do you see the government, how do you see the political landscape within Kosovo?
Now it's to me or to Lulzim?
I think, you know, we leave you out because we suppose in this case it will be by far much better to ask Ambassador Eigner, some observer from outside and not somebody who is automatically involved in the inner politics. Please, Mr. Ambassador Eigner.
No, I think it is what was mentioned. What I see as a real achievement is this normal democratic change which was brought about by those elections, and this is by far not a necessary given in that region or even beyond. I think this is really an example of a mature democratic process, a democratic change, something which is crucially important for the development of a country, also economic-wise. Because if you have one and the same regime, or the representatives of one and the same regime, there over decades, normally it doesn't bring the best results also for the economy, or it's rather an exception if it does. And indeed, the indicators for the economy are good according to the Vienna Institute for International Comparative Economics. Kosovo can expect, I think, around 4% or even above growth in the year and years to come. That's well above. It's among the best in the region, and well above EU or Eurozone average. So this is something we can already register as a very positive sign, even if it starts from a rather low level. One has to admit, and it is, as already mentioned, this initiative of jobs and justice, which one only can support and hope that it bears fruit. But still, on the other hand, and this is not now something the existing government has responsibilities to blame, is this fact of, as I said, uncompleted statehood. There's still a very large international presence in the country, helping stabilizing, but it's also a sign that we are not yet fully there.
Yeah, I think it was quite something, when the president and the prime minister Thaci and Haradinaj were asked also due to things that happened during the wartime, that they were asked to go to the international court. And so far, I would like to ask Lukas, how do you see this situation? Because, of course, this was an intervention from European side into internal or almost internal or political affairs of Kosovo. And how do you see the situation?
Which of the many European interventions in internal affairs in Kosovo do you mean?
I mean, the fact that Haradinaj and Thaci were impeached, and they had to go to court, what brought political change. And
thank you. No, this one I would not count that much into the basket of European interference, because it's a decision of the Kosovo Legislative Assembly that these special chambers take place. And they are due to Kosovo law, not to any other law. And they are conducted due to Kosovo law, but outside Kosovo, in The Hague. And as we expect to be everything scrutinized when it comes to war crimes from Serbian side and others all over the planet, actually, everything must be scrutinized. And as a friend of Kosovo, which I let's say try to be, as a founder of the Austria-Kosovo Friendship Society and other things, and as somebody who always emphasizes we are doing that not for any elites, we are doing that for the people, for the citizens, our work. Of course, also it has to be scrutinized what has happened on the Kosovo side. It's clear that the aggression came from Serbia. But it's also clear that everything has to be scrutinized what may has been committed by anybody during war times. And I find it really good that the courts are working under the umbrella of Kosovo law. It's Kosovo legislation behind it. And that's also a positive sign for a young state. Just imagine when Austria, the Second Republic, was that young. It's not that easy, but they are doing it, and I appreciate it. And we have to support this way of transparency and scrutinizing.
Yeah, I think this is the point, that, of course, nobody is exempt of law, and everybody also has to answer questions, also difficult questions, if they come up. And I just would agree with Ambassador Eigner. I think it was quite some performance that Kosovo managed to shape a new government, to shape a new administration by democratic means. This certainly is something that was not so clear before, and this almost became an example also for the neighborhood, I would say. So far, when we are talking about this, maybe let's go into the neighborhood, At the moment, almost everybody is talking about Mr. Dodik's separatist actions in Bosnia and Herzegovina. And of course, there are interlinkages, there are interdependencies, maybe political interdependencies. Where do you see the consequences or possible consequences also for Kosovo and for the whole Western Balkans region. And once again, I would ask Ambassador Eigner how he is looking at this situation.
Well, you're completely right. We in Austria, but also in other new member states, are very much concerned about the situation and possible developments in Bosnia and Herzegovina and this separatist tendency, increasing separatist tendencies. I think everything which threatens stability and undermines the unity of a state and the more so of such a fragile state like Bosnia and Herzegovina can have consequences in the neighborhood. There is no doubt. Also, we don't see that anybody, even not in Republika Srpska, really would go as far as to partition. It is this unclear situation seems to benefit quite many in their very narrow interests, whatever they are feeded by. Now, in direct relation to Kosovo, one can, of course, hear in particular in connection with the issue of the Association of Municipalities I mentioned, that this can lead to a Bosnia-Herzegovina type situation once it should be established according to the agreements of 2013. I'm not sure for many reasons, and one can compare. One is the demographic relationship in Bosnia. It's 30% Serbs are of population of Serbian origin, whereas I think in Kosovo it's 5%. So it even seen from that point of view, I think it's a threat of segregation or separation is not as big as one might fear in Bosnia-Herzegovina. I know comes in here immediately, or could come in, an argument that there have been plans of a territorial swap, which I think by now is forgotten, and it's good that it's forgotten. Such plans, of course, foster fears of segregation, despite the fact that the number of Serb inhabitants in Kosovo is rather low, and that the communities, they are the four in the north, but that encompasses more than the four, others situated in other parts of the country, which certainly would not be part of any territorial considerations, which again I have to repeat, we hope will not come up again. But yes, everything which threatens stability and runs counter to unity of a state is dangerous in and for the whole region.
Yeah, I guess you know that, of course, Mitrovica certainly is a very sensitive question and will stay a very sensitive question. And we have sensitive questions in almost all the other countries of the Western Balkans. And insofar, one cannot look at them just in an isolated way. And insofar, certainly what somebody is doing also will be somehow important, maybe for the neighboring countries. And insofar, everybody only can hope that after elections in Serbia and in Republika Srpska, normality will come back again in order to stabilize the whole region. Lukas, how do you see the situation?
Well, we have elections in Serbia ahead, and it's not only in the Western Balkans, but all over Europe and actually all over the world. we see some things, especially when it comes to better understanding, stuck when elections are about to come. And this is why we maybe need patience, but we especially need proposals for concrete developments. I've mentioned the Kosovo-Serbia dialogue before, and we see nearly each and every week new issues on the table between Kosovo and Serbia, like the car plates in Foal, like the fight against organized crime and corruption also last year, where not only Kosovo Albanian municipalities and regions and places were involved, but also Serbian majority municipalities and places. Since, especially in northern Kosovo, corruption and organized crime is more present than in the rest of the country. And this again became an issue of ethnicity, which should not be one. There is always the issue about the Serbian majority municipalities and whether or in what way they would be supposed to create an organization for themselves. So these are all fields which are on the table in the dialogue between Kosovo and Serbia. And I can only encourage, even after what happened in history, I really understand it. But anyway, I can only encourage the Kosovo side to seek, I would say, exit doors out of this limbo we live in. But of course, also the Serbian side to end, let's say, this entire fight against the recognition, even all over. There has not only been a non-recognition by Serbia, but also a campaign of Serbian officials all over the world to withdraw recognitions for Kosovo in different countries all over the world. So everything like that has to stop, and everything that's constructive and that's future-oriented and that can create mutual understanding would be fine. Just a recent example, there will be the referendum on some Serbian issue in Serbia. I don't remember the issue itself, but no matter, citizens of the Serbian state who live in Kosovo should have a right to vote in this referendum. That's my view all over the world. It's always my view in each and every country. Austrians who live wherever in the world should be in the position to vote for elections or referenda and so on. But it's sometimes the atmosphere which is not appropriate for such endeavors, because obviously the Serbian state was reluctant to officially ask the Republic of Kosovo to establish infrastructure and opportunities for conducting this referendum. And this is, let's say, this has to be overcome. All this behavior, all these things that are again and again created to stand between the two countries. The citizens deserve better, especially the youth deserves better. The Western Balkans in its entirety are not that large, all the 6 countries together. They are, let's say, they have a common destiny, and the destiny must be a European one. And Europe has a destiny which can't be understood without the Western Balkans. And that's why we should contribute as much as we can to a proper understanding. And again, also when it comes to our EU affairs, I'm always fighting for better understanding and cooperation. There is a new colleague of Johannes Eigner now from the UK, a UK special envoy for the Western Balkans. That's fine. UK is not in EU anymore. That's a different story. And it's also history. We are on the same page of history with the UK as EU, and we should work together as closely as we can. I have already drafted and also tabled a parliamentary request to the European Commission asking whether the Commission has already reached out to this new UK special envoy, in what way the cooperation with this UK Special Envoy on the Western Balkans will work, and thirdly, what the objectives of this cooperation with the Special Envoy of UK will be. Just to do not leave any doubt that we as EU are supposed to work together with each and every like-minded force on the planet. It's obviously already running positively between Lajčák, before mentioned, and Escobar, the US Special Envoy. It's much better than with Grenell, who was not that much supposed to cooperate with the EU, but today we have this opportunity, so we should take the chance to do it. And the same is true for the UK Special Envoy, and all, let's say, forces on the side of peace, freedom, rule of law should contribute to a positive future for the people in the region, no matter what ethnicity, religion, or political ideology they may would be part of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. And maybe my last question also, starting with Ambassador Eigner. Situation, of course, shows quite some achievements. There are still some challenges, as we have heard. Challenges for the country itself, for the neighborhood, and also for the members of European Union and neighboring countries like Austria, especially. So far, what can we do in a situation where we cannot offer EU membership in the next years or something like that? What can we do in order to help Kosovo to have a positive development for the future? What does EU have to do, and maybe also other institutions, in order to help in these difficult situations, not only for Kosovo, but for the whole Western Balkan region, in order to have a positive development?
Well, I think it is exactly the question we have also put to ourselves and collectively in the European Union, also with High Representative Borrell, who asked for ideas how to bring the countries, the states, closer to the European Union, while the perspective of full membership is still quite remote. So also we came up with a whole series of ideas associating them to informal formats, but also more concretely in opening programs like Erasmus and Horizon fully to people from the region and be closer to Kosovo. They can participate to a large extent already, but they are not full members of those programs. This is something one could do, and what would be extremely important for education of the younger generation, for exchanges, but also to not only to attract them perhaps to universities in our countries, but to give them a feeling that they have then a possibility and perhaps even an obligation to help with their acquired knowledge back in their own countries. I think otherwise, to put it very shortly, is for Austria simply to remain with the line I have and Lukas has described, not deviate from an inch of this consistent support for the region, be it for concrete actions or for the European perspective at large. And finally, because this was also mentioned, to increase and to develop economic cooperation, and the event Lukas has mentioned in April in Pristina, and we know this has the full support of Prime Minister Kurti, and will be really a big showcase of Austrian Kosovo economic cooperation. Think is also something which can help not only develop our bilateral relations, but also bring concrete results for the economic development and prosperity, or increased prosperity in Kosovo.
Thank you. Lukas?
I would say to go back to something Ambassador Johannes Eigner has mentioned in the beginning on international organizations. We can all do, and we are supposed to do our utmost to establish membership of the Republic of Kosovo in as many international organizations as possible where Kosovo is applying for. It's Europol, Interpol, which is on my table a lot due to my home affairs obligation in European Parliament and the Europol Scrutiny Group I'm a parliamentary member of and so on. But there are many other organizations where Kosovo should be included. We can work for that and push for that, which is only deserved and important for the stability of Europe and everything, all the values we have mentioned before. Kosovo is also a part of only two focused states on earth of the Austrian Development Agency. So we are contributing especially in the field of agriculture, but also in other fields to future development in Kosovo. But as I always claim, it's not only about sending money. That's not the appropriate behavior also on a level playing field on a human basis. It's about business cooperation. And this is where the circle, let's say, concludes, because it's about a rule of law, which creates a better atmosphere for investment. It's investment which creates jobs, and it's jobs what the people deserve. As Ambassador Johannes Eigner has stated before, the unemployment rate is high in Kosovo. People live a lot from money from diaspora people, from Germany, Switzerland, USA, and of course Austria very much. Good that they are there. Good that the euro is the only non-EU member state of the world is where the euro is official currency is Kosovo. Good that the euro is in place there, but this atmosphere for creating jobs, which is obviously on the agenda of the Prime Minister, as Johannes Eigner has stated as well, needs reforms in rule of law in order to establish the environment that attracts investments. This is something we can do for Kosovo, and then there are the concrete steps I have mentioned before, like the dialogue and especially like visa liberalization. That must be the next step. We have been talking about that for many years, at least 6-7 years in my case. There were steps forward, like the decision of the Commission, like the vote in Parliament on European level in favor of visa liberalization. But anyways, it has not yet happened. And these are fields where Austria and each and every force of goodwill in the political landscape can contribute again to a positive future for the people, for the citizens of this youngest state of Europe. And this has a lot of influence for all Europe. It's not only for these 2 million and another million around all over the world in diaspora. It's about Europe and its credibility and European values in reality and in practice. And that's why we have to act quickly and clearly. And that's why I appreciate again that you and your team, Werner Fasslabend, have organized this event today on this national holiday of Kosovo. And I also appreciate the patience of Ambassador Lulzim Pllana, who was listening for more than an hour now.
Thank you.
Who is really a good partner in Lulzim Pllana. Thanks for the good cooperation on a daily basis. I want to say also to you, and thanks to all of you, Ambassador Eigner, for the good discussion.
Yeah, before we come to an end, I just would like to announce our next event. It will be next week on Wednesday at 3:00 p.m. And the issue will be Afghanistan. And we will have the chance to get a report immediately from Kabul, not from anybody, but from the Pakistan ambassador to Afghanistan, Ambassador Mansoor Ahmad Khan, who used to be a former Pakistan ambassador to Austria, and therefore we will have the opportunity to ask him questions, how life is going on in Kabul and in other parts of Afghanistan. And I only can promise the challenges, I guess, will be much higher than in Kosovo. This will be a fact. Okay, so coming to an end, I really want to thank the two speakers and especially also the ambassador for this opportunity. And if I do not want to to resume anything, but what I see is, that I worked almost 20 years in private industry, and my personal experience is the more stable a region is, the higher will be the investment. And the bigger the market, also the higher will be investment. And therefore, the inner stability, but also the cooperation between the different entities, the different states in Western Balkans certainly will be the precondition for future economic growth. From my personal experience, I only can congratulate Kosovo to the achievements. A young state in such a difficult situation certainly was a challenge for the nation itself. And I think what we can see now is quite some achievement that has been reached. And I hope that it will go on. I want to thank Ambassador Eigner, and Lukas Mandl, and maybe Ambassador, if you just say that you have the last word at the National Day of Kosovo.
Thank you so much. I'm really honored and to have heard, and the patience, of course, to hear about all what has been achieved and has to be done, and about the problems. We discussed a lot. I'm going to try to be short, but I think that I'm going to tackle just the points in which we maybe might concentrate in the future. You mentioned the problems, brain drain, and all of unemployment rates. I think that first we have to commit on that what is somehow then expected by the European Union and member states to move towards that. I think that the visa-free movement, visa liberalization, is the first on what Kosovo is really waiting since 2018, as all the chapters and the benchmarks were fulfilled. And on the other side, I think with the dialogue, we are committed on that. And I think that it depends just in Brussels how it's going to see the roadmap towards the final result. It is the mutual recognition between Kosovo and Serbia. But the most important, I think, that it's also a bilateral one, as we discussed, and I want to reiterate again to say that the most important is the clear perspective on the ground. I think that through investment and through deepening our economic cooperation, I think that this might be really a milestone. Lukas mentioned also Silicon Valley of Europe, and this might happen. Kosovo is demographically a very young society. In looking into the ground with all these startups and possibility that's having our youth, I think that it's just an added value. I will say from the entire continent, and I am looking forward and to my term here, and really then to operate with Johannes and Lukas, and also through our friendship association here, to deepen our economic ties. I think that through that we are going to have a win-win situation. We're going to create, if you're going to have nearshoring quite close here to Europe, especially then in Kosovo, if you would have more production, I think that the issues and the problems that we have in the past, especially then for 5 year migration, I think that this might be calmed down, and we will somehow concentrate on this. But this is then my final, and I want to thank you, Dr. Fasslabend, Johannes, Lukas, for your time and for this special day for Kosovo. And I'm looking forward to meet you and to a gathering, and we will do it as a reception and for the National Day of Kosovo, I think in summer or whenever the circumstances. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for your statements. It was a great pleasure, and I wish you all the best. And as the ambassador said, okay, we will meet also in the future and further discuss the achievements and also new goals for Kosovo and the whole region. All the best, and maybe see you and meet you next week on the issue of Afghanistan. All the best.